There are so many different genres of anime, like shounen, seinen, shoujo, whatever, right? The average anime fan probably consumes the aforementioned genres without really thinking about why. And why should they, right? A story of a young person overcoming adversity and discovering themselves, it's too enthralling of a plot. It appeals to everyone. You don't really have to question if it'll be good or not, you just automatically know it will. Either that's due to a recommendation or you just know it's gonna have something for you. However, despite that, people, especially Westerners, usually turn their nose up to a certain genre, and I've been guilty of this myself. It's all too common to hear someone say, mecha anime is for children or mecha is boring. And when you ask them which ones they've seen, well, they'll say Transformers or reruns of Gundam Wing off Toonami when they were children. Well, that's what I'm here to discover and get to the bottom of. Maybe even along the way I'll change your perspective, because I want you to keep an open mind and find out why you hate mecha and why you probably shouldn't. But before that, if you haven't already, please consider hitting the like and subscribe button so that you never miss an upload.
Now back to your regularly scheduled program. Only on Sceledrus.
To understand the genre of mecha, you need a history lesson. Mecha is a genre of Japanese animation that features robots, often piloted by human characters, engaged in some sort of combat with monsters or other robots. The first mecha manga can be attributed to Tetsujin 28 Go, known in the West as Gigantor, by Mitsuteru Yokoyama. The series featured a giant robot remote-controlled by a 12-year-old detective, and it became immensely popular in Japan. The success of Tetsujin 28 Go paved the way for other mecha anime series to follow. However, one series really skyrocketed this genre to new heights. Enter Mazinger Z, made in 1972 by Go Nagai. You see, Mazinger Z was different from Tetsujin, due to the pilot being able to be inside of the robot and control it like a car. Today, that idea is really a no-brainer, but back then it was revolutionary. You see, most early mecha series followed a similar plot structure, where a different villain would attack the hero every week. Back then, children's media was primarily made to only sell merchandise and toys, so this plot formula fit perfectly. And so it did for the next few years. Almost every mecha show coming out around this time stuck to that mold, up until 1979, where Yoshiyuki Tomino changed the formula, turning what was usually a merchandise pumping machine into something with substance with Mobile Suit Gundam. Due to Gundam's more mature story, it somewhat broke the mecha genre into two distinct entities: Super Robot and Real Robot. Super Robot being more fantastical with its tone and how the robot would even function. For example, if it could somehow magically conjure fire or ice blast like a superhero. Real Robot with its story being more complex and realistic, usually opting to tell a story where warriors fought with 19-meter robots with guns instead of boots on the ground. Knowing the difference is crucial when it comes to talking about mecha anime, because we're no longer just talking about one genre. The term Super Robot comes from the theme song of Mazinger Z, and refers to a giant robot with an arsenal of superpowered weapons. If you like Marvel, DC, or just superheroes in general, you'll like Super Robot anime. It has similar themes and plots of what you've come to expect from the superhero genre. Usually the robots are the only one of its kind and are Earth's last defense. Contain some atypical abilities or power of some sort, created by a mad scientist no doubt, and the capabilities of the robot being overcome by the user's willpower. Some of the oldest and greatest mecha franchises belong to this genre. If you're interested in watching some modern Super Robot anime, a good entry point would be 2009's Mazinger Z The Impact. It's a solid reimagining of the original Mazinger with some new ideas from Go Nagai's other series. But if you want something darker and more esoteric, check out New Getter Robo by Ken Nishikawa and Go Nagai. Fair warning though, the Getter Robo franchise as a whole is far more difficult to get into due to its age. And what I mean by that is the anime versions were made in the 70s and early 90s are the embodiment of commercialization. They're not very good, and it is a product of its time. But the other animated adaptations past then are solid, like Shin Getter Robo and even get a robo arc. They won't tell a full story by just watching them on their own, and usually requires a bit of manga reading to understand everything. If neither of those are your type and you want something basic and closer to shonen, check out Gurren Lagann. It's probably the only mecha anime most people have seen or even heard of except for Gundam. And that means something. It's more than likely the most beginner-friendly mecha anime of all time. Now let's talk about Super Robot's younger, edgier brother. The term real robot is used to describe robots or mecha that are treated as realistic tools or weapons. If you like Star Wars or Pacific Rim, then you'll find that Real Robot to be right at home with what you've come to expect. It's essentially realistic portrayals of war and military efforts, but with giant robots. Due to Real Robot being an offshoot of the super robot genre, sometimes the robots themselves have caveats where they're not exactly too realistic, but they aren't too unrealistic. For example, some real robots are powered by crazy future tech and allow them to skirt the lines of reality, but not to the point of absurdity. It's usually things like lasers, which in our reality is practically impossible. If you are interested in this genre, then you can literally watch any, and I mean any Gundam series, except for G Gundam. That one is more super robot than anything. The only Gundam series I've personally seen is Iron-Blooded Orphans, and I definitely recommend that one to start off, as it doesn't require any previous material. You can just start it, watch it all the way through, and be satisfied. There is a new Gundam series that just came out called The Witch of Mercury, and I've heard good things from it, so check that one out too. Be expected to see a ton of characters talking and politicizing instead of fighting. It may be boring at first, but give it a shot, stick with it, right? Eventually you'll come to appreciate it. If Gundam is too political, then try Code Geass. It's been called the Death Note of Mecha, and that's for a good reason. The amount of mind games is basically on par with Light Yagami and L. Alternatively, check out Neon Genesis Evangelion. Now look, this pick is a bit unconventional due to most people debating if Eva is more akin to a super robot or a real robot anime, and while both answers aren't exactly right or wrong, I personally feel that Eva is more real robot in its first half of the series. The Eva units aren't stocked with crazy weapons, and they use basic knives and guns. As far as I'm concerned, that's enough to classify as a real robot. There's also tons of political government talk, but the robot itself, however, you'll just have to watch it for yourself and then determine what category it falls under. If you've seen it, let me know what you think about it in the comments. I would love to talk more about this. Most casual anime watchers don't know that there are two different types of mecha anime. So their most common argument against the genre is that it's either boring or childish, referring to Real Robot's political themes and Super Robot's roots in toy commercials. If you look online on this topic, you'll see those and other opinions constantly, like Mecha isn't as interesting as shonen, it doesn't appeal to younger people, or even it's grown stale as a genre. I guess people watch shonen anime to immerse themselves as a self-insert of sorts. They see themselves in the characters, and it's hard to do that when your main character is a walking hunk of metal, even though you can occasionally see the pilot and sympathize with them. But that makes me wonder, if that's the case, then how come people love Attack on Titan? Because when you think about it, all the Titan shifters are basically super robots in disguise. So what makes AOT different from a mecha? When looking at it on paper, not much is different. Other than the Titans being made of flesh and bone, the entire thing is thematically a mecha anime. I also don't understand the argument that mecha doesn't appeal to younger people. You see, Attack on Titan is a seinen, meaning that it's marketed towards older audiences, yet that doesn't stop it from being popular with younger audiences. And finally, it's grown stale as a genre. Now that argument right there can be said for most anime nowadays. Everything's been done before. Even the new popular anime aren't that unique. Demon Slayer is an incredibly popular anime nowadays, but its story doesn't do anything new. Same thing with Jujutsu Kaisen. Now it's not wrong to like these anime, but you must acknowledge that these are very basic, especially when you watch its former inspirations. I don't think it's fair to use that argument against mecha since it's been around for decades, and its most mainstream contemporary versions are more than likely the rare one-off new IP like Darling in the Franxx or the latest Gundam installation. Mecha isn't a genre that gets a new anime every season of every year like shonen or isekai. If you take that into consideration, then yeah, I suppose you can say it's stale if your only options are anime that came out between the late 90s and 2010s. Many people have preconceived notions or biases towards mecha, and I hope I've at least broken that wall down a little bit. You have to recognize the wide range of stories and themes that mecha anime can explore, as it's full of unique offerings. To simply write them off as unwatchable is doing yourself a disservice. Just like how shounen anime can have different subgenres, mecha can too. By diving deeper into its history, we can see that mecha anime has always been about more than just giant robots and action-packed battles. From deep thematic exploration to character-driven storytelling, mecha anime has the potential to be absurdly engaging. In the end, it's important to approach everything with an open mind and a willingness to explore new things. So, don't be afraid to give mecha anime a chance. You may just discover a new favorite genre. There's literally anything and everything for you to discover when it comes to mecha. Whether you're a longtime fan or a newcomer to mecha anime, there's always something new to discover and explore. And with that said, I have given you the keys to unlock your mind and figure out for yourself why you hate mecha anime and why you shouldn't. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, consider liking, commenting, subscribing, and sharing. It helps out with the channel and it makes it possible for more consistent uploads. And if you want more anime content from me, consider checking out my other videos here on screen. And with that, I'll see you all in the next one.